song that they sang by me. If you look in the bulletin, you'll see that that is the subject of the topic that I'll speak on today. I'll tell you a few things. One, I would like to walk back and forth the way Ian does and talk, but I have no balance, and the first time I had to go over there and turn around and come back, I'd fall down, and they'd say, well, Jim, the leaguer did it again. But, that's been a long, long time since that happened, 40, 50 years ago, I guess. But anyway, the second thing is that most of you probably know, and we have some visitors I know that do not know probably, that I'm legally blind and I don't recognize people that I've known 50 years at times. I try my voice, and if I don't recognize a voice, I have to ask them who they are, which is embarrassing. So, but if I have somebody with me, when they walk away, I'll ask them, who was that? So, but if I don't speak to you when I see you somewhere, it's not because that I'm snobbish or whatever. I don't really recognize you. The other thing is, I had this scripture down, this message down earlier, but I don't see well enough to read it now. There's not enough light up here that I could really use it anyway. So what I'm going to say is out of my head and from the heart. The third thing is that my wife and I have discussions, and I tell her something, and a little bit later we talk around, and next thing you know, I know what I think I said, I know what I meant to say, but she says, that's not what you said. So I'm making some words or something up here that just falls off the cliff somewhere, but bear with me if you would. Once upon a time, I was a halfway Sunday school teacher. If you see notice the title of the message today is Why Me? And I was, I guess, a halfway Sunday school teacher at best. I had a great class. We had some super years. It was 18 to 38-year-old class, and it was a blessing to me and some of the best years of my life in this church. But how did I come up with that? 43 years ago, I was a 16-year employee, salaried employee with Big Island Paper Bill, and we were paid bi-monthly, the middle of the month and the end of the month. And I don't remember whether it's the middle or the end, but I got my check, and they get off about 4:30, and I drove up to the bank on the way home, and go in and go to that little bench or shelf that's on the side there next to the post office to sign a check. And Reverend Tommy Speight is standing at the left-hand teller window, speaking to a teller. Now, at the bank at that time was Maureen Brown, was manager, and Alice Nichols and Glenna Putney were tellers. And Maureen and Alice have gone on to their reward, and I'm sure both of those ladies are in heaven now. All were members of Big Island Baptist Church. Miss Glenna is still with us, and she is a blessing to our church as well right now. But as I was signing my check, Tommy was standing there, and he was a relatively new member, our new pastor for the church. He had not been here long, and did not know all that many people, and he was telling whoever was at either Alice or Glenna one at the left-hand window of the teller's booth. And he was telling her that he had just received a telephone call that he had to be out of town on Sunday. And did they know anyone who might could speak Fillings on Sunday? And they battered back a few words back and forth, and for whatever reason, I don't know, I guess, but I signed my check, and I walked up beside Tommy, and I said, Tommy, don't worry, I'll do it. Well, I've never done anything like that. I've had prayer up here before, I guess, but I did it. And I said, Tommy, I'll do it for you. He didn't know what kind of job I would do, and maybe I didn't know what kind of job I would do, but took a load off of him, and I went home, and I went to the bedroom and started taking off clothes, the dirty clothes of the day to wash up and get ready for supper. And I'm a country boy, eat supper instead of dinner back then. Dawned on me, Jim, this Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock. You got a message to deliver on Sunday. Why in the world did you do that? Why did you say that? I said, why me? And I kept thinking on that, and then the why me kept coming back to me, and all at once it dawned on me. I guess the light bulb came on us there that the Lord turned on for me. I don't know. But I knew that there were a lot of people, famous people in the Bible, that said to the Lord, why me? And I tried to come up with what started out, and then I first thought of Abraham. He's the first one in the Bible that talked about that much in Genesis. And it dawned on me that Abraham didn't say why me. The Lord told him to pack up and go to a place and show him. He packed up and went. But when I look at what happened there, the promised land was to the southwest, and he took off due north. Well, the Lord had a reason for sending him up there that I don't know about, but he finally got them on down in the direction that they were going. So the next one I really thought about, and what I came up with, is Moses. And to get to Moses, you need to remember that you need to go all the way back to Joseph, the son of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers. They wanted to kill him, all of them but the old one. And they said, oh, let's throw him in this pit here for a while. They put him in the pit, and they saw him coming in his coat of many colors that his father sent the stuff out there to give them. They said, here comes the little dreamer now. He had dreamed that they'd all bowed down to him, and he'd made the mistake of telling them about it. And they had enough bad feelings there already, so they wanted to kill him. That's serious business. But that Reuben, the older brother, I think, he said, no, let's put him in this pit. Well, they put him in the pit. It wasn't that long before here come a caravan of camels with traders going to Egypt. So they pull him out of the pit, send him to Egypt. He winds up in the king of Pharaoh's court. He interprets a dream that Pharaoh's smart people came. I don't remember the names they used for them, but they were supposed to be these people who could read dreams and interpret dreams, and they couldn't do it. And Joseph did. Well, next thing you know, Joseph is the number 2 man in Egypt. He is, Pharaoh puts him in charge of just about everything that's going on. So they're living in the penthouse, let's say. They live in, he brought his family down, and then the rest of the famine came, and all of the Israelites came down, and Pharaoh had given them the best land, and everything was great. Well, fast forward 400 years. The Israelites were in Egypt for over 400 years. Part of it in the penthouse, and the last bit of it, if you pardon the word, they went to the outhouse because they got to outnumber the Egyptians, and they were afraid that they were going to take over the place, so they enslaved them. And of course, now we go to Moses and the bulrushes. Pharaoh had wanted the midwives to kill all male babies when they were born. And of course, the midwives did not kill them all. They killed some, but they did not kill them all. And Moses did not get killed, and you know the story of Moses and his little boat that they made for him that float down with his sister watching. Pharaoh's daughter came out and to take a bath in the Nile River with all her entourage of helpers. How many slave girls came along to take care of her, I don't know. But here come Moses the basket. And she falls in love with him. And of course, his older sister gets Pharaoh's daughter to let her take her to actually back to his mother, because Pharaoh's daughter couldn't nurse a kid and keep it going. So Moses grew up half the time in Pharaoh's court and half the time at home. And he knew he was an Israelite. And one day he went out and an Egyptian was beating an Israeli slave. And Moses killed the Egyptian, and he buried him in the sand. And he thought that covered it up. The next day he went back by the same place, and two Israelites were fighting. And he went to separate them, and they asked him, "What are you going to do? You going to kill us too, just like you did the Egyptians yesterday?" And Moses knew that, word's out on me. Pharaoh will find out about it. I'm a dead man. I'm leaving. So he takes off and goes to the land of Midian. And we'll start right there if you go to the 3rd chapter of Exodus. It says that Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law. So Jethro had given his daughter to Moses in marriage, and they were married. And I thought that was odd, because, they weren't supposed to marry outside of being an Israelite. They didn't want to cross. But Moses did. And it starts out that he said Moses had taken the flock to the back of the desert. And he said he'd come to the Mount Horeb, which is the mountain of God. And as going around with his flock, they were taking their time on the eating and what have you, and Moses looks up and sees this bush burning upon the mountain. And he didn't think much about it at first, but he kept on and going, and they feed slow, so he kept in sight. And this thing just didn't burn up, so he said, "I'm going up and see about it." So when he went up to the top to the mountain, he got close. The voice of God came out of that bush and said, "Moses, Moses, take off your sandals, because where you're standing is on holy ground." And I think Moses fell down on his face, and because he was afraid that he had seen the face of God, and that's supposed to be a death penalty. You're supposed to die if you see the face of God back then. So Moses God got him up, and he started telling him what he wanted to do. He said that I have heard and seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. And he said, "I'm sending you down there to take them and lead them out." Moses said, "Why me, Lord? No, I'm not qualified to do that." And Lord said, "Yeah." He says, "I will be with you. And no matter what else I say from here on out, when I talk about someone, if I don't say that God told them that I will be with you, I'm going to stop, because that is what it is. God said on all of them that I'm going to talk about, I will be with you." So he started with Moses and what he wanted him to do. And Moses, he told Moses to go to the elders of all the Israelites, all the tribes, and to tell them what's going to happen, what I'm going to do for them. And Moses said, "Lord," he said, "who am I going to tell them that you are?" And God told Moses, he says, "I am who I am." That came up in the Sunday school lesson this morning. And that's God working in another way. It's interesting. But God, to my knowledge, that might be the first, and I think it's the first in the Bible that God recognizes or calls himself as I am. So then he went on, and Moses kept telling him, "What am I going to do?" And God told him, and he said, throw your rod down, your staff down, and see what happens. And he did, and it turned into a snake. And Moses and everybody around him ran. I guess there was some, I don't know if there's ever there or not. It implies that they were. It said they all ran. And then he said Moses grabbed her by the tail, and it become a rod again. Well, long story, get to it. Moses, he said, "Who am I, Lord?" He said, "I'm slow of speech and I'm slow of tongue, and I just can't do this. Why me?" And God told him, "I'll send your brother Aaron with you. He talks well." And Moses said, Lord said, just don't send me, send whoever you wish. And the Bible says God got angry with Moses. And Moses went on and he did God's work. And you know what happened. You can follow the Exodus on from there. And I can fully understand Moses hitting the rock with a staff and not speaking to it, because I used to think when I was a kid growing up and heard about the Exodus, well, there's a few hundred or a few thousand out there in the desert going up the road. Well, it's somewhere you can, depending on who you listen to and who you believe, there's anywhere from 3 million to 7 million Israelites on the Exodus. That's hard to believe, but that's how many they say there. And when you start to go to numbers and you start naming all of the men of military age, and it runs into the thousands and thousands, and that don't count the older people, the younger people, the babies, the wives, and everyone else. So there's a great number of people. But Moses came to me as being the first one is to really come up and say, "Why me?" And he didn't get to go, but God took him up on the mountain, and he showed him the land, the promised land that they would be going to. Now, the Bible implies that Moses could see all of that. So God had to give him some high-powered magnifying glasses or binoculars to see that, because it covers a long way. The original promised land was a great deal of land that incorporates a lot of Muslim countries now. The second one is, if you go to the book of Gideon, of Judges, and you can start with the 6th to the 7th chapters of Judges, talks about Gideon. And lo and behold, guess what's going on? They are basically enslaved by Midianites. Here the Midianites was what looked after Moses, and now they are arch enemies of the Israelites. They come in and they take all the grapes off the vineyard, off the vine of the vineyard. They take all the wheat if it had already been threshed. But when you first see Gideon, he's in a wine press threshing wheat. And he's doing that because he don't want the Midianites to see him or know him, because they'll come and take the wheat away from him, and you can't make bread without wheat. So an angel of the Lord came to Gideon, and he said, "You of mighty valor." And Gideon said, "Who are you talking to?" And he said, "I'm talking to you." He said, "You're a man of valor. Mighty man of valor." And Gideon didn't think too much of that, but then he got to talk with God. And God told him, Gideon said, "I will be with you." And Gideon said, and I find this interesting, Gideon said, I need proof. He said, "When I go to bed at night in my tent," he said, "I want to lay some fleece out in front of it." He said, "When I get up in the morning, I want that fleece to be wet and all the land around it be dry." Went to bed, got up the next morning, that's what it was. Wet fleece, dry ground. And the Lord came back to Gideon again, and Gideon said, Lord, please don't get mad at me, but said, I need more proof of who you are. He said, tonight I want to do that differently. He said, I want, when I get up in the morning, the fleece to be dry and all the ground be wet. Well, that's what happened. So Gideon went on to be, he was responsible for leading people that killed thousands of people. Just about all of the leaders and judges, Joshua and Gideon and all, they killed literally thousands. I believe in one battle that Gideon fought, they said that there were 130,000 of the Midianites and the others killed. And it sort of implies that it's in one day. The one thing I find interesting in the Bible is very seldom does it ever say how many Israelites were killed. But it always tells how many thousands of the foe are killed. They are mighty people in power with God's help. And proof of that is that Gideon had a great army, had a great number of people with him, and God said they would do that. And he said, you take them to a brook and you let them drink. And he says, if they get to sit down and drink out of it, you send them home. And if they lap it up like a dog, you send them home. But he said, if they cup it in their hand and look and they take it, he said, those go with you. And they were few in number, and the reason God did that is, if Gideon went with all his great army, he could take credit for it. But with just a few, he had to give all the credit to God. And the third one that I came up with is Jonah. Jonah is an interesting take. It's a short book of the Bible. It's a short, you need to read it. You read it easy, it's 2.5 pages in my Bible. One easy read. But in the first chapter of Jonah, first verse, he said, the word of the Lord came to Jonah. And he said, go to that great city, to Nineveh, that great city, and preach to them, for their wickedness has come before me, and I am greatly disturbed. So Jonah, surprisingly, it didn't say that he said no, or why me to God. He said it to himself, because as soon as God left, or he left, he went straight from where he was on land to the city of Joppa, town of Joppa. It's on the Mediterranean Sea coast. And there was a ship there that was getting ready to go to sail to Tarsus, which is a hometown, by the way, of Paul, who was Saul at that time, Saul of Tarsus, and who became Paul after the experience on the road. But he went down and bought passage to Tarsus. Well, the ship left. And once they got out to the Mediterranean there pretty far, God brought a great storm in. And the water really, really got high. The wind was terrible. And they started, all of the ship started praying. And the captain said, you pray to your God to stop this. And they prayed and nothing happened. And they threw off most of just about all of the cargo that they had. And they couldn't get it. And the storm kept getting worse instead of better. And they were in danger of being running into the rocks and all of them drowning. So they cast lots to find out who the problem was on the ship or what the problem was. And I don't know how you cast lots. I don't know how that's done. But it came back, they cast the lots, and it came to Jonah, excuse me, I'm having one of them. one of those moments that I lost who I'm talking about. He came to him, and he had gone down, Jonah had gone down to the hold of the ship, which is the very bottom, and he was down there sleeping because he was trying to get as far away from God as he could, and he figured maybe God wouldn't see him down there. Well, that didn't work. So the captain went down, and he got to Jonah, and he said, Jonah, said, you're the problem. He said, pray to your God to stop this. And Jonah said, I'm guilty one, but said, my praying won't fix it. And he said, what you need to do is you just need to throw me overboard, and that will bring it to an end. Well, it takes something from Jonah to do that. So Jonah, they can go up, they throw him overboard, and you know the rest of the story. They are the rest of the story. I'll add a little bit. You've always read about Jonah being swallowed by the big fish. Well, some people say big fish, and some say whale, and some say whatever, and everyone just about questions, how in the world does a person live in the belly of a fish or a whale? Well, God did this. If God wanted to, he could speak, and he could build a penthouse down there for Jonah to stay in. He could build an apartment building. He could build a one-room living room. God can do whatever he wants to do. If he can form this earth and the universe and what have you, all God has to do is speak it and it's done. So Jonah was in the belly of a whale, and he just, excuse the word, as the Bible normally uses, said he was vomited out upon dry land. And he went to the city of Nineveh. And before I go a little bit further, I'll tell you a little bit about the city of Nineveh. Nineveh was one of the largest and most beautiful capitals in all of the Middle East in biblical days. It was a 3-day journey around walking, which is probably 60 miles across. You figure you walk 20 miles a day, and it's about 60 miles across. It was completely walled. It does not give the height of the wall, but they said the wall was 20 foot wide at the top. They took dirt up there. They planted gardens up there. They raised flowers up there. The city had wild animals in cages throughout the city. They had cages of beautiful birds hanging here, there, and everywhere. It was just a beautiful place. And God told Jonah twice, he called it Nineveh, that great city. So it was something else. So, but anyway, Jonah, he goes and he does what he does. He became, and it was probably the Billy Graham of the Old Testament, because he started preaching on the street corners, and he went throughout the city preaching. And the word reached the king about what happened, that God was going to destroy it if they did not repent. And lo and behold, the king took off his robe, he put on sackcloth, sat down in a pile of ashes, poured ashes on his head, and he put out an edict throughout the city of Nineveh for every man and person to do the same thing. Everyone was to put on sackcloth and do the ashes bit. So they repented, and God did not destroy them. There's a little bit of a side story there about Jonah going on up. He went on up. He didn't think God was going to save him. He thought he was going to destroy it. He went on the side of the hill and was going to sit there and watch it. And it was a hot day, and the Lord grew a big vine and put over top of it with a big leaf and the shelter. And Jonah enjoyed that, but that night God destroyed that, and Jonah got really upset with God because he took his shade away. And God said, you worried about that one, the little shade that knocked that away from you, and you wanted to kill all the people in this great city. But let me give you a little side note as to why Jonah might have been a little bit dubious about going to Nineveh. Nineveh was king of Assyria, was capital of Assyria, and the Assyrians were one of the most bloodthirsty people that lived in the Middle East or in biblical days. They practiced the art of crucifixion as well as the Romans did. But they crucified so many people, I guess they just did not make it and do it on a cross. They strictly did it on the pole. And the reason that I know this is I read it on we had a Bible study once upon a time that each person in the study had to do one of the lessons. And I chose that, and I did it out of commentary or whatever, the nice big book that had an explanation. They take one single pole and they sharpen the top of it, or not sharpen it, they taper it off to a point from about 3 foot back or so. And they lay your person down on their stomach, and when you lay on your stomach, your abdomen comes down, or sinks a little bit. They would take the point of that pole, stick it down under your rib cage, and drive it 3 feet up into your throat. And then they would drop you in the hole. They did not put you in a cross, they didn't do whatever. They drove a piece of tree up your rib cage to your throat, and you were probably dead when they dropped you in the hole. And they said many a time that many of the streets, roads leading into Nineveh, was lined with people hanging that were crucified. So Jonah knew that, and that was probably one of the reasons that he didn't want to go to Nineveh. With that being said, why me? Why am I here today? Well, 43 years ago, I gave this message. It's the first time that I filled a pulpit. I've never done it but once or twice since then. I prayed a lot from it, had prayer from it, and so forth. This will probably be my last. My mind is going, my health is going, my everything's going, but I have a feeling this will be my last. And I didn't want to finish with this. I didn't want to finish for years, and the opportunity didn't come, and I didn't do it. I got to the point that I did not want to do it for several years. But last week, when Ian asked me would I do it, I started to say no, and I thought of this, and me. So I decided, yes, I would do it. I thank you all for being here. I thank you so much. And I know that there's visitors here, and we're so glad to have you. Again, I'm too blind to do much. I'm blind. I can see enough to get in trouble. But anyway, we're coming right now to what's probably the most important part of a sermon, and that's the invitation. If you've ever been asked to be a speaker, a teacher, a Sunday school teacher, a Bible school teacher, a choir member, a chairman of a standing committee, a committee member, if you've ever been asked to do anything for God's work, you need to think about it. Don't say, why me? Remember, God is always with you. God's right here if you're a Christian. Holy Spirit is there. I can also probably almost guarantee you that Satan, he's got one of his minions sitting right here, trying to get me to deny Christ. He wants to get to you and I. He don't worry about those that aren't saved. He don't have to, he's got it already. He works on us. One thing that bothers me a little bit is there's a part of the Bible that says, God said, I'd rather you either be hot or cold. But since you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out. And I don't know, sometimes I worry about being lukewarm. And I think each and every person needs to think about whether they're lukewarm or not. How much time do you give God each day, each week? You need to think about that. And when you're asked to do something, to pray, you're asked to pray in church. Remember, God is always with you. I'm not up here by myself. He's with me. So you think about that. When whatever the song of invitation is, what number?
342.
I'm sorry?
342.
222?
342.
Y'all can hear I can't, you know what it is. Let that be played. I'll ask Chairman of the Deacons, Tom, if you would come up and except for in the absence of the pastor, would you come up and there is someone who needs to make a confession of faith and going to be baptized, that's fine, that's great. If you need to rededicate your life, it's a good time to do it. If there's something wrong in your life or something you need, you just don't be a backsliding Christian. Serve the Lord and serve with gladness.